I almost hit leave meeting. Okay. Calling the case of Ethel Marks versus Sunny's Rooftop Bar. I'm Judge Cheney. I need appearances from the council today.
Starting with the plaintiff, Your Honor. Well,
Yes.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Audrey Shepard, counsel for the plaintiff in this case, Ethel Marks.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Clay Owens, and today I'm joined by my second chair, Michael Lee.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Hi, Michael.
And together we'll be representing the defendant, Sunny's Rooftop Bar.
Okay. Do you wish to make an opening statement in this case?
Yes, Your Honor, but prior to openings, is it all right if we go through a few housekeeping matters?
Absolutely.
First, Your Honor, together both parties have brought exhibits 1 through 26. We just like to take note that they've been pre-marked as such for identification throughout the trial.
Okay.
Mommy, can you get me pizza?
Just a second.
Of course, Your Honor. Pizza.
Sorry. I'm sorry. That's going to potentially be a minor issue until my husband returns because I have 4-year-old twin boys.
Not a problem, Your Honor, at all, Your Honor.
Yeah, so I'm so sorry. But yeah, so housekeeping, you've pre-marked 1 through 26. That's fantastic. Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor, we just like to take note of the rules of evidence 603 and 615, which constructively sequester and swear in all witnesses, other than, of course, the defendant in this case, Sonny Mehta, as a party representative. And Your Honor, as plaintiff, we have a party representative, Ethel Marks, but she's not going to be testifying today.
Okay. Any objection to that, Mr. Owens?
No, Your Honor, but like Ms. Shepard said, Ms. Mehta will be here representing her company today, and she will be present for the trial.
And finally, Your Honor, we just like to take note of the stipulation which states that the autopsy report in this case, Exhibit 22, has been pre-admitted.
Okay. And yep, you don't disagree with that stipulation, Mr. Owens?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
With that, we're ready to proceed.
Okay. Mr. Owens, do you have any motions or housekeeping matters that you would like to address before we proceed to the opening statements?
No, Your Honor. Defense is ready to go.
Okay. All right. Then I would turn it over to you, Ms. Shepard, whenever you are ready.
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm going to mute myself so that you don't hear screaming in the background.
Sounds good. They saw the signs, but they never stopped serving drinks. It's 11 p.m. on a Sunday night at a small bar in Malibu. The owner of the bar has been going back and forth to the same girl's table over and over again throughout the night, taking her order, bringing her 1, 2, going on 6 drinks in less than 3 hours. The signs are there. She's clearly intoxicated. She's slurring her words, talking loudly. At one point, she even falls down the stairs. The owner of the bar sees the signs. And she knows that she should stop this girl from drinking more. She should stop her from driving home. Members of the jury, today you are going to hear that even though she saw the signs, she did not stop her. You're going to hear that after she saw the signs, she continued to bring that girl drink after drink until that girl was too drunk to drive. That girl's name was Jessica Marks. She was 19 years old. She wasn't even supposed to be in that bar. And today you're going to hear that just 2 minutes after driving out of the defendant's parking lot, she drove her car off a bridge. And she died. That's why we're here today. Today, we are here to hold the bar who served Jessica Marks, a minor, responsible for their actions. Now, as the plaintiff, we've brought a claim of wrongful death against the defendant in this case, Sonny's Rooftop Bar Incorporated. Now, as a plaintiff, we have the burden of proof to show by a preponderance of the evidence that every element of our claim is more likely true than not. Now, today it's undisputed that Ms. Marks was a minor at the time she died. And so today that leaves us with only 3 things to prove. First, we'll prove to you that the defendant saw the signs that Ms. Marks was intoxicated, that she continued to serve her alcohol, which was a substantial factor in causing Ms. Marks' death. Now, today we are going to meet that burden because the evidence will show that the signs were obvious, but that the defendant didn't stop serving. Now, first, you're going to hear about how these signs were obvious. Members of the jury, you're going to hear about all the drinks that the defendant served Ms. Marks that night, from wine to IPAs to rounds of shots to hard seltzers. You're going to hear that at the time of her death, Ms. Marks had a 0.16 blood alcohol content. That's twice the legal limit for an adult and 16 times the legal limit for someone Ms. Marks' age. But you're not going to just have to take numbers or the words of eyewitnesses, because members of the jury, today we're going to show you a video taken of Ms. Marks just 40 minutes before she died, showing that the signs of intoxication were obvious. And you're going to hear that the defendant saw those signs. You're going to hear that they watched Ms. Marks as she stumbled down the stairs, and that they stated they should cut her off at that point. Which brings us to their actions. Because today you're going to hear that even though they saw those signs, they didn't stop serving. You're going to hear how they brought round after round, up to 5 rounds from 9 p.m. until close to Ms. Marks. And you're going to hear that when it came time for her to leave, they didn't call a cab, they didn't call an Uber. No, they did nothing to stop her from getting in her car and driving out of that parking lot. Look, at the end of this trial, the evidence is going to be clear. The defendant saw the signs that Ms. Marks was intoxicated, but they chose to not stop serving her drinks for the entire night. That's against the law. And that's why at the end of this trial, we are going to ask you to hold them liable for the wrongful death of Jessica Marks. Because they saw the signs, but they did not stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
May it please the court. Look a little closer. With how long we've been on lockdown and businesses have been closed, it might sound a little bit crazy to hear a case about a wild night at a local bar. But back in 2019, my client, Sonny's Rooftop Bar, was thriving. It was a great spot for locals to hang out and have a couple of drinks in downtown LA. But the owner, a woman named Miss Sunny Mehta, she wasn't perfect. And she made a mistake. In March of 2019, she served alcohol to 2 minors, Jessica Marks and Morgan Levin. And she isn't proud of it. But members of the jury, we aren't here to indict my client for serving alcohol to minors. Because what you're here about is that after Jessica drank that bar, she got into her car, swerved off the side of the road, and died. Now, members of the jury, nobody here denies that that is a tragedy. And my heart goes out to Miss Marks' family and friends. But the plaintiff told you that Miss Mehta saw the signs, but she didn't stop. So when the question in front of you is what people do and don't know, it is critical that you look a little closer. And that's why you're here today, members of the jury. because the plaintiff chose to sue my client for something called wrongful death. And with that accusation came a burden. It became the plaintiff's job to prove their case by a preponderance of the evidence. That means they have to show you it's more likely than not that Miss Mehta and her employees kept serving Jessica drinks when she was clearly intoxicated, and that those drinks were a substantial factor in causing her death. But we're also going to ask you to look a little closer at something we call comparative fault. What that means, members of the jury, is if at the end of today's trial, you think Jessica shares some of the responsibility for what happened, then you can't put all the blame on Sonny's bar. And so to answer those questions, I'm going to ask you to look a little closer at what Miss Mehta and her employees actually knew. And who better to answer that question than Miss Mehta herself? Because today, Miss Mehta will take the stand and walk you through everything that happened on March 24th of 2019. And sure, she'll tell you that she served Jessica Marks drinks. But frankly, she didn't look all that drunk. And she'll assure you that at no point did she think Jessica was unsafe to drive. But you won't just have to take Miss Mehta's word for it. Because today you'll learn there was an eyewitness just a couple feet away from Jessica's table that believed it was Morgan and not Jessica who was drinking too much. You'll learn it was Morgan and not Jessica who couldn't even walk in a straight line. And members of the jury, that's important. Because by the end of this trial, you're going to see plenty of documents, pictures, evidence, the kind of things you don't see in your everyday life. And at first, it might look like a lot. But today, I'm asking you to look a little closer. And what that means is when the plaintiff makes allegations, when they throw evidence at you and tell you what it means, it's your job to question it, to ask if it really adds up to what the plaintiff tells you it does. Because when you do, when you look a little closer, you'll see that Sonny's bar isn't the careless business that Miss Shepard wants you to think it is. And that's why at the end of this trial, I'll ask that you find my client not liable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Counselor. I am going to ask Ms. Shepard to call her first witness, and I was thinking I might take myself off camera so we can just focus on you and the witness, unless there's an objection, and then we'll pop back in and out.
Whatever's best for your honor.
And Mr. Owens, do you have an objection to that?
No, Your Honor, works for me.
Because I should have done that, I think, during your speeches, and I apologize. Okay,
You're fine. That's absolutely okay.
take it away, Ms. Shepard.
Yes, your honor. Plaintiff calls Morgan Levin to the stand. Your honor, before beginning the examination of this witness, I'd like to read number 13 from the pretrial order from Judge Pasquarello, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
It states, at all times relevant, Frankfurt Johnson and Sonny Mehta were acting on behalf of defendant. Your honor, if it's all right with you, I'm ready to proceed.
Go for it.
Well, good morning. Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Good morning. My name is Morgan Levin.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a student at UCLA. About to start my third year studying biology, pre-med.
And how are you involved in today's case?
Jessica, she was my best friend.
When you say Jessica, are you referring to Jessica Marks?
Yes.
How did you know Ms. Marks?
Well, we've been friends forever. We met in seventh grade. We were both theater kids with no friends, and we were in the Tempest together. She was playing Caliban, and it was the funniest thing I had ever seen in my life. basically we were inseparable ever since.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Ms. Marks?
She was so kind and so patient with everyone she met, and yet was also hilarious. I mean, she had the best impressions of everybody, our teachers, our friends. I'm sorry, I just miss her. But
Of course. And sir, you said that you'd known her since 7th grade. Forgive the question, but had you two ever been drinking together?
yes, on high school, on occasion, we'd go to the occasional party and grab a drink. And then we were friends in college too.
So you told us that you were with Ms. Marks the night that she died. When was that?
March 24th, 2019.
And where did you go that night?
We went to a bar in Malibu. I had never been there before, but it was called Sonny's Rooftop Bar.
Now, when you went to Sonny's rooftop bar, were you or Ms. Marks over the age of 21?
No, we were both 19 at the time.
All right. Well, I want to walk the members of the jury through the events of that night specifically, once you got to the bar. Now, what time did you arrive?
I think around 9 p.m.
And what did you do when you arrived at 9 p.m.?
Well, Sonny's has this sort of bar area inside and then a rooftop outdoors. So we obviously wanted to sit outside, so we grabbed a table at the rooftop.
When you were walking through Sonny's bars that night, did you see if there were any other customers around?
There were, I'd say around 10 people. There were like 4 other tables up on the rooftop, and most of them were full.
And were you able to see if there were employees working that night?
Yes, I saw 2, the bartender and the owner, Sunny, who came up and introduced herself to us.
Did you catch the name of the bartender at any point?
I think it was something like Frankfurt Johnson. I think that was his name. He announced it all the time, Frankfurt Johnson.
Well, sir, do you remember if Frankfurt Johnson and Sonny Mehta, you said the bar owner, were interacting with you and Ms. Marks throughout the night?
Well, I interacted mostly with Sonny. Sonny was taking our order and speaking to us throughout the night. Frankfurt was at the bar inside, but I saw Jess go and speak to him occasionally.
Well, so you said that you were making orders with Sonny Mehta, the bar owner. I just want to make something clear. Were you ordering alcoholic drinks?
We were, yes.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more detail about those alcoholic drinks you were ordering. Now, do you know who was paying for the drinks that night?
That was me. Jess was visiting me at my school, so I footed the bill.
And would you recognize the receipt of that bill that you foot?
Yeah, I'm sure I would.
Well, Your Honor, we're now displaying what's been pre-marked for identification as Exhibit 17. Now, Mr. Levin, do you recognize Exhibit 17?
Yes, this is the receipt from that night with the drinks and the food we ordered at Sonny's.
And that signature at the bottom, do you know whose it is?
That's mine.
And when you received this receipt, how exactly did you get it?
Well, Sonny handed it to us at the end of the night. I asked for the bill.
And does it look to be accurate as you remember it to be?
Yes.
Your Honor, plaintiff requests to move Exhibit 17 into evidence.
No objections, Your Honor.
It'll be moved.
All right, well, Mr. Levin, I want to start at the top of this receipt. Now, it says decoy red blend. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, that was a bottle of red wine we ordered when we first got there.
Okay, and who drank from that bottle of red wine that night?
We both did. I only drank 1 glass, though.
And it says 3 White Claws. Who drank the 3 White Claws that night?
Oh, that's all, Jess. I don't like White Claws.
It says that there are 2 different IPAs on this receipt. Sir, who drank the IPAs?
think we each had one.
And who had the green tea shot specials?
Again, we each had one of those at the end of the night.
Are there any drinks on this receipt that you saw Ms. Marks have that night? Excuse me, were there any drinks that you saw Ms. Marks have that night that weren't on this receipt?
Yes, I remember that she was drinking a rum and coke later in the night, and I don't know how she got it, but I didn't pay for it.
Sir, do you know the official name of this rum and coke at the bar?
Yeah, they call it the Captain and Coke at Sonny's, I think.
All right. Well, we've talked about the drinks that were had that night. Now I want to talk about how Ms. Marks was behaving that night. Did you have any reason throughout the night to believe that she might have had a little too much to drink?
Well, yes. I watched her the whole night and I saw how she was acting.
What signs did you see?
Well, as the night went on, she started slurring her words. She stopped making sense. Her eyes got sort of red and watery. She started sort of losing her balance. And I mean, at one point, she almost fell down the stairs. She fell into one of the bartenders. Thank goodness, because she almost hurt herself.
What time was this at?
That was 10 p.m.
And how did that person react when she fell onto them?
Well, it was actually Sonny, the owner. And I remember Sonny turned to bartender Frankfurt and said, "We might need to cut this one off."
Well, sir, at that point, did they cut her off?
No, they kept serving. They kept serving us drinks. They didn't stop serving us drinks.
I want to talk about how Ms. Marks's behavior was later in that night. Would you recognize a video of Ms. Marks from that evening if I showed it to you?
I'm sure I would.
Your Honor, we're displaying what's been pre-marked for identification as Exhibit 10. Sir, do you recognize the image on the screen?
Yes, this is a still from the video that I think she posted on social media.
Do you know who took the video?
I do.
Your Honor, at this point, plaintiff requests to move Exhibit 10 into evidence.
No objections.
Sir, what time was this video taken?
That was later in the night, past 11.
Let's go ahead and play that video.
Hi everyone, Morgan and I are in Hollywood. We're at a bar. It's kind of like a Philly bar, except everything is really, really expensive. $10 for a seltzer. And everyone here wants to be a model or an actress. You know, I'd like to thank the Academy. Mom and Dad, you've inspired me. Okay, well, go big or go home.
After you took this video, sir, who drove home that night?
She did. Jess did.
Did you ever see her again after she drove away?
No. No, she crashed.
No further questions.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Mr. Levin, I understand it might be hard to talk about what happened to Jessica, but I've just got a few questions for you, okay?
No, it's okay. Thank you, though.
I told us a lot on direct examination about what Jessica drank, but I want to talk specifically about what you had to drink, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Like you mentioned on direct examination, you said you had about 3 drinks that night, right?
That's right. The beer, the glass of wine, and the shot.
Right, you're telling us the only shot you took that night was a shot of that green tea special, right?
That's right. I don't exactly remember what was in it, but it was just one shot at the end of the night.
So, sir, you would tell the members of this jury you certainly weren't taking shots of Fireball with a random stranger you met, wouldn't you?
I don't remember doing that, no.
Your Honor, at this time, permission to read a portion of Kendall Reutman's deposition onto the record. Opposing counsel has stipulated it's authentic and that Mr. Roitman's unavailable for trial, but did have the chance to be deposed.
Any objection?
Pursuant to stipulation, no objection, Your Honor. However, we just ask that we are informed which lines opposing counsel is reading so that we can screen them before they're read aloud to the members of the jury.
Sure, if Your Honor would like, could we display that on the screen now so opposing counsel gets a chance to see it?
Do you have an objection to that?
Assuming it's constructively outside the purview of the jury, that's fine, Your Honor.
Okay.
Mr. Lee, can we get that on the screen? These are specifically the lines that we'll be referring to.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed, counsel. We're back in front of the jury.
Of course, Your Honor. Question. Did you see Jessica take any shots? Answer. Oh, right, I forgot. We took a shot together. Well, not Stevie, me, Jessica, and the person she was with. What kind? I don't remember. Fireball? It was one of those sweet shots that college kids love, like it wasn't straight tequila or whiskey or vodka or something. Who bought them? I think we bought them. I don't know. It was so long ago. Now, Mr. Levin, like you said, when you only had 3 drinks, you didn't think you were actually all that intoxicated, right?
I mean, I would say I was definitely buzzed, but I wouldn't say I was blackout drunk or anything like that.
Right. You would certainly say you were capable of walking in a straight line, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so.
You wouldn't say that you were drunk enough that any passerby would see you stumbling around. Isn't that true?
May have stumbled or something once or twice, but no, nothing regularly.
Your Honor, at this point, permission to read another portion of that deposition onto the record?
I imagine that you're going to want to preview it. So there was no objection, and then go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do that now.
That's exactly right, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, and now we're back in front of the jury, and you may proceed.
Were you concerned about Jessica getting behind the wheel? She was in better shape than her friend. Her friend could barely walk in a straight line to the Uber. But I don't think anyone who drank as much as Jessica should get behind the wheel. Now, Mr. Levin, we talked a lot about the drinks you had at the bar that you paid for, but I want to talk about some of the drinks you didn't, okay?
Okay, that I didn't pay for? Sure.
Like you mentioned on direct examination, Jessica was drinking a rum and Coke that night.
That's right.
And you don't know exactly how she got it.
No, she told me she was going to the bar to talk to the bartender, thought she could get a free drink there, but I didn't see exactly where she got the drink from.
But you can tell us, before you ever even got to the bar that night, Jessica was drinking some wine, right?
We shared, I think, half a bottle of wine before we left for the bar.
And when you got to Jessica's house that day, there was a whole empty bottle that you don't know when she drank.
Well, sir, I don't know if she drank it at all.
Exactly. You don't know if or when she drank it.
No, it was just in the Airbnb, when I got there, the rental.
Mr. Lee, can we get that receipt from earlier that night on the screen? In Your Honor, it's already been admitted into evidence. Mr. Levin, I want to talk about how coherent you were that night when you were drinking. Because you'd agree with me, you actually did the math wrong on your receipt.
You're right. I added 20 and must have added 30 instead. So I'm doing biology. I'm not a math person.
Right, you might not have taken calculus yet, but you can tell us that after you had those drinks that night, you weren't able to add your tip correctly.
No, looks like I added 30 instead of 20.
So finally, I want to look a little closer at what Miss Mehta actually knew about Jessica, okay?
Sure.
Because you would say you and Miss Mehta, you only interacted a handful of times.
Directly, yes, but again, Sunny was around the whole night while we were drinking.
Well, you would say no interaction you had with her lasted any longer than 30 seconds or a minute, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, not one interaction lasted all that long, no.
And while you told us Jessica looked drunk to you, you can't remember a single time Jessica even slurred a word when talking to Sunny.
I can't remember a specific instance, no, but I know she was acting that way the whole night and she still didn't stop giving us drinks.
But Mr. Levin, that's a yes to my question. In those brief interactions, you can't remember your friend slurring a single word in front of Miss Mehta.
No, I don't have a specific time that happened, if that's what you're asking.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Levin. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Levin, when you walked in that bar with Jessica Marks around 9 p.m., did she seem a little drunk to you at that point?
Her face was a little flush, but she wasn't drunk. That was only after Sonny started serving us.
And who greeted her at that point at the door?
Your Honor, I believe opposing counsel's exceeded time.
Your Honor, my timer has about 10 more seconds left, but
Okay.
I'm
This I don't know what to do. So I believe you're keeping your own time, so please do.
Your Honor, if there was a discrepancy in time, I'm happy to let opposing counsel finish that question. I was just told the time had expired.
Thank you. There's a remaining, second chair says there are remaining 10 seconds. Okay, but just you guys stay on top of that.
yes, Your Honor.
That was Sonny at the door that greeted us, got us our seat, and started serving us alcohol.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Levin. There's no recross here. I'm sure of this, right?
Yes, Your Honor, no recross.
Just want to make sure. And then you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, with that, the plaintiff rests.
Okay. Any motions? Any from anyone?
None
Then
from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
okay, then we'll
None from
proceed.
the defense.
Okay, we'll proceed. Sorry about the Zoom. I hate that. I can't wait till we're back in person. You may proceed when you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Sonny Mehta to the stand. May we proceed? Thank you, Your Honor. Can you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Hi, my name is Sunny Mehta.
What do you do for a living?
I'm kind of between jobs right now. I was the owner of a bar, but that's closed now.
What bar?
Sunny's Rooftop Bar. It was this kind of little local place in downtown LA named after me. And if you believe it, we had a great rooftop.
What was it like running Sonny's?
Running a bar, it's a bit of a hassle. It's a lot of customer service. It's a lot of working with bartenders, making sure you have the right staff. I mean, there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but I loved it.
Well, I want to jump forward to 2019. How was your business doing that year?
It was doing well. I mean, nothing exceptional, but we were happy with business.
Did anything change?
In March of 2019, Jessica Marks, she was in a fatal accident after leaving Sunny's Rooftop Bar. And yeah, that devastated business.
Well, I want to start from the beginning. When did you meet Jessica Marks?
I only met her that one night. It would have been March 24th, 2019. And that was the only time I ever saw her.
Now, was Jessica drinking that night when she came into your bar?
Yeah, she'd come in with a friend, a male friend, Morgan Levin, and the two of them ordered a bottle of red wine to start, and then, they just ordered more drinks throughout the night.
Well, I want to talk about some drinks you didn't serve, Miss Marks. Have you been here for all of today's trial?
Yes, I've been watching.
Did you hear Morgan Levin say that Jessica was drinking wine before she ever got to your bar?
Yeah, I heard him say they had a half a bottle of wine together. Yeah.
Now, on March 24th of 2019, did you know Jessica was drinking wine before she got there?
No, I mean, when I saw her come into the bar, she looked sober to me.
Now, did you hear Morgan Levin say Jessica was drinking a Captain and Coke that night?
Yeah, I did hear him say that.
Now, based on what you know as the owner, did you or any of your employees serve Jessica that drink?
No, it would have been on the receipt. I know I didn't serve her, and I didn't see anyone else serve her that.
Now, did you hear from Mr. Reutman's deposition that he had a shot of Fireball with Morgan and Jessica?
Yes, yeah, I heard that.
On March 24th of 2019, did you know Jessica was given that Fireball by another customer?
No, I didn't witness it.
So based on the drinks you actually served Jessica, were you worried about her health?
No, Jessica and Morgan were ordering pretty evenly. I couldn't tell who was drinking them, but I was concerned about Morgan, not Jessica.
Well, let me ask you this. Did Jessica ever fall into you on the stairs that night?
No, I never saw her even stumble. And I make sure to watch my patrons walk down the steps because, I mean, that is where people wobble. That is where you can tell how drunk they are. And I saw her walk down the stairs just fine and walk out of the bar.
Well, Miss Mehta, did Jessica ever look completely intoxicated to you that night?
No, I mean, I'm trained to look at all the signs and I didn't see any of them.
Now, were you ever worried that it wouldn't be safe for Jessica to drive home?
No, I was worried about Morgan driving home and I said that.
So at the end of the day, Miss Mehta, did you ever give Jessica a drink when you thought she needed to be cut off?
No, I didn't. If I had seen the signs, I would have stopped serving her. I mean, I didn't see any signs.
Thank you for your time, Miss Mehta. Your Honor, I have nothing further.
Object to cross?
Yes, Your Honor. But before starting cross-examination, we'd actually like to ask Your Honor to make a request that Your Honor would take judicial notice of an adjudicated fact under Rule 201.
Which is?
Your Honor, we'd like the court to take note of the adjudicative fact that the legal limit of an adult being intoxicated in the state of California is 0.08, and that the legal limit for a minor is 0.01. Your Honor, this is a generally known fact within this jurisdiction of this trial, and therefore it would be appropriate for Your Honor to take notice of it under 201.
Is there any objection to me taking a judicial notice of this adjudicated fact under 2.201?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, I will take judicial notice and the jury will be informed of such.
Yes, Your Honor. With that, may I proceed with cross-examination?
You may.
Good morning, Ms. Mehta.
Good morning, Ms. Shepard.
Ma'am, I'm going to start by talking about the signs that you knew to look for on March 24th of 2019. You just told us on direct examination that you were specifically trained to look at all the signs.
Yeah, we pass a certification test where they give us the signs that you observe when someone is, too intoxicated to continue serving. It's a long list.
Wait, let's go through that long list you're talking about. Because you know that one sign of intoxication is for someone to have loss of balance, right?
Yes, that is very common.
Another common sign would be having a vacant gaze,
Yeah,
lack of hand-eye coordination,
yes, ma'am.
talking loudly,
Yes.
not making
Definitely
sense.
louder in the night is definitely one of those signs.
And ma'am, you'd agree that another one of those signs is for someone to be
Objection,
not
Your
making
Honor.
sense.
I'm sorry, and I just think there was a little bit of confusion because of the Zoom format. People started talking over each other. I just asked the opposing counsel allow my witness to finish her answer before moving on.
I think that is the effect of Zoom. So just one pause. Ms. Mehta, were you finished with your answer?
Yeah, my apologies for interrupting. I just wanted to say, talking loudly is something we look for, and we're looking for that kind of progression. They're getting progressively louder throughout the night.
Okay. Duly noted. And Ms. Shepard, you may continue.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Mehta, you'd say that another sign of intoxication, that's part of that progression, is if someone's not making sense, right?
Yes.
And if someone is obviously intoxicated in your bar, you understand that it's your job to stop serving them drinks, right?
Yes, we are required to stop serving an obviously intoxicated person.
Let's talk about whether you saw signs of obvious intoxication in Ms. Marks on March 24th. Because on direct examination, you told us that you didn't see any of them in Ms. Marks that night?
Yeah, I thought she was sober when she came in, and I thought she looked sober when she left.
Well, let's talk about what you were basing this upon, what you were able to see that night. Because, ma'am, you were serving Ms. Marks's table throughout that evening, right?
Yes, yeah, I cleared their table and I served them, so I probably interacted, 8 or 10 times quickly with them.
You're telling us that you interacted with Ms. Marks 8 or 10 times that night?
Yeah, clear the drinks, you bring the drinks, you take orders, so yeah, that kind of adds up.
Well, ma'am, when you were talking to her these 8 or 10 times, you heard her speak, right? You heard Ms. Marks speak?
Yep, she didn't slur any words. She made perfect sense to me.
Okay, let's watch a video. Your Honor, we're pulling up what's been pre-admitted as Exhibit 10. But Your Honor, before pressing play, I'd like to read stipulation 18 onto the record, if that's all right, Your Honor.
That's any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Stipulation 18 reads, Exhibit 10 was posted to Jessica Marks's Instagram account at 11:11 p.m. on March 24th of 2019. Ms. Mehta, you were serving Ms. Marks from 9 p.m. until 11:45. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think they closed the bar out a little closer to 11:40, but yeah, that's the right time frame.
Okay, let's watch the video.
Hi everyone, Morgan and I are in Hollywood. We're at a bar. It's kind of like a Philly bar, except everything is really, really expensive. $10 for a seltzer. And everyone here wants to be a model or an actress. I'd like to thank the Academy. Mom and Dad, you've inspired me. Okay, well, go big or go home.
Ma'am, yes or no? That's the woman you were serving drinks to on March 24th.
Yeah, that's Jessica Marks. At no point did I interact with her when she sounded like that.
Ma'am, you'd agree that in this video, she sounds drunk.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say drunk, but you can definitely tell she's drinking. I would have definitely noticed that.
Ma'am, in your own words, you'd say that she sounds possibly drunk?
Yeah, she could possibly be drunk. Drunk looks different in a lot of different people. It comes down to the individual and how they're presenting those symptoms.
Well, ma'am, in your experience and with your training, watching this video, you'd say she sounds possibly drunk. Yes or no?
Yes, I can't be certain, so she could be possibly drunk, yeah.
Now, you say that you saw Jessica and her friend leave your bar around 11:45, right?
Yes, that is when they were leaving. We closed at 12.
And on direct examination, ma'am, you told us that actually at that point you were way more concerned about her friend, Mr. Levin, right?
Yeah, he was stumbling at that time, so it was good that they were going home.
And you thought Mr. Levin wouldn't be safe to drive.
Yeah, and I remarked that to Jessica. I wanted to make sure that Morgan was not driving.
I want to make sure something clear, ma'am. On direct examination, you told us that from what you saw, it looked like they had about the same amount, at least, of drinks that night.
I said that they ordered the same amount. I can't be sure who drank what. Obviously, I wasn't watching that.
Ma'am, you'd agree with me that Ms. Marks was a 5-foot tall woman?
Yes.
But you're telling us that when she left the bar that night, 11:45, she didn't seem even the littlest bit tipsy.
No, not to me. She was walking fine. She was speaking fine. She seemed sober. It was, Morgan, she was kind of dragging out.
And at no point did you stop Ms. Marks from leaving the bar that night.
No, if I had thought that was going to happen, I obviously would have stopped her.
But ma'am, you didn't.
No, I didn't. I didn't see the signs.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, if I may proceed.
You may.
Ms. Mehta, I know this might be hard to talk about in retrospect, but I want to look a little closer at what you actually knew at the time. Ms. Shepard just showed you a video, and I want to make this clear. Were you anywhere near Jessica when that video was recorded?
No, I wasn't.
Anytime you interacted with Jessica that night, was she acting the way she did in that video?
No, not at all.
And if she was, if you had actually known Jessica was like that, would you have stopped her?
I would have been concerned. I would have been watching her. And, if it had gotten to that point, yeah, I would have stopped her. Yeah.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Any further witnesses?
Nothing more from the defense, Your Honor. We rest our case in chief.
Okay. Ms. Shepard, are you ready to give a closing argument in this case?
Yes, Your Honor. I just request that any remaining time I have would be reserved for rebuttal arguments.
Absolutely. Mr. Owens, are you going to be ready to give a closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You may proceed when you're ready, Ms. Shepard.
They saw the signs. They just chose not to stop serving. Members of the jury, when someone buys a drink, there's two parts to that transaction. There's a buyer and there's a seller. And under the law, it's the seller who has a legal duty to make sure that they're responsible when they're selling the alcohol. It's their job to look for signs of intoxication, to stop serving people who show those signs. Members of the jury, today, the defense got up here and they told you that we just have to look a little closer. But today, you're going to hear that it was their job to look closer. It was their job to look for the signs, but they just didn't care. You see, they did see the signs, members of the jury. They saw that she was intoxicated that night, but they chose not to stop. They kept bringing that 19-year-old girl drink after drink until she was too drunk to drive, and it cost her her life. That's why we brought a claim against the defendant, Sonny's Rooftop Bar, for the wrongful death of Jessica Marks. And today we had the burden to show you by a preponderance of the evidence, every element of that claim to be true. We had to show you that as a minor, they served her alcohol. And that when she showed signs of intoxication, that they saw them. And that they continued to serve her alcohol. And that this was a substantial factor in causing her death. And today we proved to you that the defendant saw the signs, but never stopped. So let's walk through the evidence and the testimony you heard today so we can see how we've met that burden. I want to start by talking about the signs. Because members of the jury, you just heard from the defendant, the employees themselves, that they knew the signs. We just walked through a whole list of all the signs that Ms. Mehta knew to look for that night. Vacant gaze, slurring words, talking loudly, not making sense, lacking coordination. And you heard from Ms. Mehta that she was present from 9 p.m. until 11:45 p.m. throughout that evening, interacting with Ms. Marks 8 to 10 times. We know how Ms. Marks was acting in that time period because you got a chance to see a video for yourselves, members of the jury. You got to see for yourselves the video in which she is clearly intoxicated. Let's recall the testimony of the eyewitness in this case, of Mr. Levin. He told you that after that video was recorded around 11 p.m., Ms. Mehta brought another round of drinks. She was displaying the signs, members of the jury, and they didn't stop serving her. And let's consider what they did serve her. Let's consider how reasonable it is to claim that they didn't know that she was intoxicated. Members of the jury, we have the receipt. Now, they spent a lot of time talking to you about what wasn't on the receipt, that you got to look a little closer to see what is there. Members of the jury, let's do just that. Because today you heard that that night they served Ms. Marks drink after drink, from wine to beer to shots to hard seltzers, all within the course of less than 3 hours. Members of the jury, it's not reasonable to say that a 5-foot woman went through all of those drinks in less than 3 hours and was completely sober by the end of the night, not even a little bit tipsy. What's the story that we're believing here, members of the jury? The one that the defense is telling you? The one that they're telling you so that they're not liable? Or the one that the facts show? Because the facts show that Ms. Marks was displaying the signs of intoxication and that it was clear to everyone around her. So let's talk about what they did in reaction. Because members of the jury, we know they saw the signs and we know exactly what they didn't do. They didn't stop serving the drinks and they didn't stop her from driving away. You heard today from Mr. Levin that they left that bar and that Ms. Marks drove away. You heard today that Ms. Marks drove down the road after all those drinks and was never stopped by Ms. Mehta. Members of the jury, I asked on cross-examination, did you stop her from driving away? And she said no. Her reason? She didn't see the signs. Members of the jury, letting that 19-year-old girl drive away after a full night of drinking wasn't reasonable. It wasn't responsible. It was against the law. Look, the evidence is clear, members of the jury. You may be asking yourselves, well, she chose to drink, so shouldn't she be responsible? But no, you heard today, and the judge is going to tell you that it's the duty of the seller to make sure that they're selling responsibly. And you heard today that they didn't. They saw the signs. They did not stop serving her. And as a result, she died. That's why we're asking you to hold the defendant liable for the wrongful death of Jessica Marks. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? May it please the court. Look a little closer. Members of the jury, imagine that when we're done here, you go to a bar down the road for a trivia night. Say there's some questions about musicals or Star Trek, but you don't happen to be a theater geek or a Trekkie. Would you know the answer to those questions? Of course not. You can't tell me what the Tony-winning song is unless you've heard it. You can't tell me what happens in Star Trek until you've seen it. you don't know the answers until you look a little closer. And the same is true about this case. Because as I stand here at the end of this trial, we know an awful lot about Jessica Marks. I can tell you her blood alcohol concentration to the 100th of a decimal point. I can tell you exactly how many drinks are on the receipt that Miss Marks and Mr. Levin had. And most importantly, and unfortunately, I can tell you that on March 24th of 2019, a young woman lost her life far too soon. But as sad as those facts are, they don't decide this case. Because as the judge will instruct you in just a moment, this case isn't about what we know now, but what Miss Mehta knew then. And to answer that question, you have to look a little closer. And that's important because it was the plaintiff who bore the burden of proof in this trial. When they chose to sue my client for wrongful death, it became their job to prove their case by a preponderance of the evidence. That means you have to walk out of here feeling confident that it's more likely than not true that Miss Mehta and her employees gave Jessica drinks when she was clearly intoxicated, and that those drinks were the substantial factor that led to her death. And members of the jury, to see how they didn't meet that burden, I want you to look a little closer at three parts of the plaintiff's case. Number one, look a little closer at if Miss Marks was clearly intoxicated. Because the plaintiff needed to prove that Miss Mehta saw the signs, not just that they're telling you she did. And when exactly did they do that? Because no matter how much Miss Shepard points to a video and says it's some smoking gun, what does the evidence actually show? You learned Miss Mehta was nowhere nearby when that video was taken. That in the brief times they interacted, Miss Marks was never acting how she did in that video when she was with Miss Mehta. I can't help but notice Miss Shepard's up here cross-examining my client for 7 minutes. She goes through a laundry list of different signs, and all you hear is that Miss Mehta never saw them. So what's the plaintiff's explanation? That Miss Mehta is a psychic? That she could just read Miss Marks's mind and see that she was too drunk? Members of the jury, if you don't believe in the supernatural, you can't buy the plaintiff's case. And that brings us to number two. Look a little closer at if we can believe what Mr. Levin said. Because Miss Shepard said it was Miss Mehta who was trying to defend herself and that you can't trust her. But you heard it was Morgan Levin that was drinking. A lot. And at the end of the day, members of the jury, the plaintiff turned this case into a giant game of he said, she said, and asked you to place your bets on the decedent's drunk best friend. Because we learned an eyewitness just a couple feet away from Morgan said that he couldn't even walk straight. And members of the jury, you saw the receipts. You can see them now. By the end of that night, Morgan was so drunk he couldn't even do basic math. And when that's their only witness, it's the plaintiff's case that doesn't add up. Number three, look a little closer at how many drinks the bar can account for. Because at the start of this trial, I asked you to think about something called comparative fault. What that means is if you think Jessica shares some of the blame for what happened, you can't put all the fault on my client. And we heard that while Miss Marks was ordering drinks from the bar that night, there were plenty that she didn't, and that Miss Mehta can't account for. In fact, I want to keep track of them for you, members of the jury. Because sure, we saw from that receipt that Jessica ordered a couple different kinds of alcohol from Sonny's bar. But you also heard that that night, Miss Marks was drinking wine before she ever got to that bar. That she was drinking a rum and coke that wasn't purchased at that bar. And that she was taking shots of Fireball that somebody else bought and that Miss Mehta couldn't track. Think about that, members of the jury. Do you think those extra drinks could have been part of the reason it was unsafe for Jessica to drive? Do you think if Jessica didn't have those extra drinks, it's more likely she makes it home safe? Because if you do, Miss Shepard can't stand up here and tell you my client's the only one at fault. She can't point a finger at Miss Mehta and say that she's the only person to blame. Because at the end of the day, members of the jury, when something tragic happens, you always want someone to put the blame on. And when that tragedy is the death of a 19-year-old girl, that instinct, it gets fiercer. You want somebody to blame, to point the finger at. But that's not why we're here today. Because when you look a little closer at the plaintiff's case, you see that Miss Mehta never saw those signs. Sure, Miss Mehta's made some mistakes, but she didn't cause this tragedy. Find Sonny's rooftop bar, not liable. Thank you for your time.
Rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. Let's look a little closer at the evidence we have. The autopsy report showing us that her blood alcohol content that night was 0.16. Members of the jury, the smoking gun in this case is that her blood alcohol content was twice the legal limit for an adult, and they're telling us an experienced bar owner didn't see it. What's the evidence that they're saying that supports that? Her claims that she didn't see it. Mr. Owens asked you, when could she have seen the signs? Members of the jury, we know because she told us on cross. She went to the table 8 to 10 times throughout that night, and we know that Ms. Marks was acting drunk during that time period. Members of the jury, when something tragic happens, people don't want to be blamed. But our job today is to follow the evidence, and we've shown by a preponderance of the evidence that they saw the signs but didn't stop. Find them liable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, counselors. I believe at this point, Ms. Grimes will tell us what to do, but I know we have to finish our ballots, and each member of our jury/judging pool is allowed to give one comment per advocate. This is not a time to deconstruct or reconstruct their case. This is just your opportunity to say, my favorite thing about you was X, or here's a suggestion going forward is Y, but just one comment per person. So when you're ready to do that, members of the jury, please let me know. And you can put yourself on, take your video, put your video on, and have your one comment per advocate. Maria?
Sure, and when all of the ballots are in, I'll give everyone the okay and let everyone know.
I'm going to continue the ballot. So yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Grace, sorry, did you say that we have to wait until all the ballots are in to give our feedback?
Yes, so I'll get the okay from Phil and Justin when all of the ballots are in, and then everyone can turn on their cameras and give a comment.
So
Okay.
we can't take feedback until our ballots are in?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let me get done.
You should have received an email, and if you didn't, just chat me and let me know.